Hi, I'm Steve Geinup, and thank you very much for being curious in my VR education GoFundMe project. Now, I'm using GoFundMe because I'm focused on creating free assets and getting them out to the education community. There's a lot of teachers right now that are trying to explore Web3D and VR, and they need help. So I just figured that some free assets would be very useful. Down the road, I would like to create a business or a nonprofit, partner with a business or a nonprofit, but that's later. GoFundMe, I think, then is better for this. GoFundMe, I think, is better also because, like a lot of people, I lost my job this summer. And while I am working, it's just not quite enough. So any type of donation right now would be helpful. Now, about the work and my background and experience, I've been involved in VR and Web3D for 25 years. I'm an award-winning VR artist, designer, published academically, and even have a doctorate in design communication. So I'm Dr. Geinup. I've been teaching game design online for 15 years, and more critically, I've been teaching classes in Web3D in VR for the past decade. So for 10 years, I've actually been teaching VR art and design in VR with game design students. And my students and I create artworks and art installations and VR poems and all kinds of expressive sorts of experiences. And it's this sort of creative art foundation that I want to bring to teachers as a whole. There's a lot that we can do to inspire the types of things we build and also how we teach and how creative that we can get. In fact, if you're wondering about what we can do, well, congratulations, you're actually already in my showroom. These are all things that I have just made, and I'm looking forward to sharing with folks. So there's a lot here. It gets kind of complex, but I will do a quick run through. In Second Life, they do some things with agree and disagree. And if you agree with something, you go and stand right there. And you can imagine then in a classroom, instead of like in 2D, you click a little button and you ask people, take a poll. You can do your polls this way and actually have your students grouped up for discussion. And I think I actually may do this in a ring version so people can actually stand in a circle and have a discussion as well. I've got this for agree and disagree. I've got a number scale, and I'm playing around with letters for like a quiz or, what do you think your answers are, A, B, or C? I think you can also combine this to create this sort of game like The Chase, that British game show. So there's just some really interesting things I think that are started here that we really ought to explore and go further with. And I hope that, again, try GoFundMe and go on a journey. And just to continue with this, then I am using Frame VR. These assets will work in Mozilla Hubs. They will work in VRChat, Neos VR. But I like Frame VR because it's very novice friendly. And even if you've never done anything or tried anything in the virtual, tried any 3D spaces, Frame VR is just amazingly powerful to start with. It's not great as a professional tool, but it is super useful for novices. And I'm working to create elements for novices to make their work, again, more professional. And so I've got some buttons here and some solid panoramas. Other things I'm sharing is my virtual classroom. And it's actually in pieces. So it comes with a base, a couple of screens, and a platform for your students to stand on, and a stage. So all these pieces then are things that you can arrange to create your own class space. And here we see a couple of arrangements. The top image, kind of the normal, what you would think of being normal, where I've got the grass in the background and place to stand in the stage. Images on top there. But note down below, I'm just using this sort of ring portion. And I've taken my students into outer space. On this screen, on the top image, I've actually just flipped around the stage area. So I'm using that for students to stand on. So again, these pieces, we can arrange them in different ways to support how you want to teach. And even more creatively, I want you to think about this for a second. Every single image here, 1, 2, and 3, these are from the same presentation. You can use FrameVR's Scenes feature to swap out and change what your classroom looks like to support whatever you're trying to share. So in this one presentation, I take my students easily and immersively on a journey from this sort of grassy space out in the sunshine, out into outer space. It's just so much fun, and I want to again, I want to share this with you folks, and I want you to explore and just engage this the way I do. And that's if that's not enough, wait, there's more. I've created story mazes. Now, I assume you guys have been to an art gallery or a museum and maybe seen, oops, sorry, my mouse is actually caught on something. But if you've been to an art gallery or a museum, you've probably seen them lay out things on a timeline, and you travel through and you get the story through time. Well, I've done something similar here, where I've created these mazes that people can easily drop their own images or objects into and create a story. Now, beyond that, though, it starts at one path and then it breaks into 3 or 4 different endings. So it's actually like a choose your own adventure game. You can put messages and make decision points in this and have people choose which path they take and create your own sort of immersive stories. You can also set things up so that people can choose and tell students to go to the left or the right and have a discussion about that. Like in this top maze, you can go left to right, and on one side you can put the images that you would get from a right-wing newspaper or right-wing website. And then the other side, you can put the images and text from a left-wing website and have your students travel through each side. And then when they come out, have a discussion or debate about what they see. I mean, again, life is a journey, and you can minimize and shorten that into an educational experience here and create, I think, really unique and immersive discussable spaces. So again, story mazes. I'm also playing around with refrigerator magnet poetry. I mean, if you are a game designer, you understand how spaces tell stories, narratives in space. And again, even all these other things that you're seeing right here about this classroom presentation that I discussed, or the traveling through the chase game here, and of course these story mazes. All of these are stories being told through space and being creative. And how do you learn that? How do you express that? What's the safe entry point? Well, the safe entry point for all of this stuff, for telling stories in space, is of course refrigerator magnet poetry. And you can arrange these around and create your own story. I mean, I can hide the love, in fact, behind this and create an interesting sort of experience, right? So I've created all these little letters. They actually are two-sided. So if you love nachos, maybe this is something that would something you'll appreciate. Again, it's just poetry. It's just fun. It's just a creative entry point for you to express yourself and to embrace VR not as something that's a realistic sort of simulation, but as some place that you want to express yourself and share knowledge. And that's really, where I started. I started with VR poetry. I've created some assets here for people who do want to create VR poems. Buttons to go through a menu, things to help signify where your audio is. So if you want to create your own virtual poems, I've got some assets here. And that's where I've started. And this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. But I hope you're interested, and I hope you're curious, because there's just a lot more that we can do here. If you buy into this idea that an art installation, like can be an educational one. You can begin to see how you can leverage art for creative education. And that poetry that I talked about, think about a virtual poem not as a single individual installation, but a series of installations that go along. Now, if you buy into the idea that a VR poem is a series of art installations, education then, as a presentation, as a series of educational presentations. And all that freedom and flexibility and creativity that you can apply to that VR poem and how you connect those installations can come back and inspire and inform what we can do in VR. And again, if you've enjoyed this presentation so far, then you've enjoyed and hopefully understand what I'm saying. So please check out the website. The links are below. Please use these assets and take a journey for yourself. And if you can, please make a donation. I'd love to hear from you. Okay? Thank you very much.